I've recently started this series where I needle felt some of my favorite Squishmallows. I've done this twice already, so I already have a little menagerie, a little collection of all my favorites. Cute, cute. Today I'm just gonna be adding to that, just making a couple new balls of lint. First things first. I pulled out this styrofoam block. It might look familiar from my last needle felting Squishmallows video. It's actually not the exact same block since my last one kinda deteriorated, so I had to get a new one. I'm using a bunch of polyfill as my base. The first time I needle felted Squishmallows, they were super tiny since I didn't use any polyfill. I just didn't know any better. The second time I used polyfill and they were a little bit bigger. And today all my Squishmallows are gonna be all different sizes, which I think is fine since, you know, Squishmallows come in all different shapes and sizes. I kept stabbing and turning and stabbing and turning, just to kinda evenly distribute the stabs. And this is what I've ended up with. Perfect. So far so good. I'm adding on some beige wool. Just kinda wrapping that around and then stabbing that on. One of the most annoying things about needle felting is that the camera refuses to stay focused. I guess it's because my hands keep moving and there's just a lot of movement going on, so the camera loses focus. It's not apparent quite yet, but I'm stabbing this into a little light brown chicken called Celine the hen. I love chickens. I always have. I always will. I used to have some chickens when I was younger, and one day I'd like to have some again. Not anytime soon, though. Sniffledorf might eat him if I try to fit him into my apartment. He eats everything, but particularly loves chicken. So here's my frizzy little chicken so far. It's not much, but it's getting there. Oh, there's a little piece of styrofoam stuck in there. Get out of here. And there's a cat hair, which I only just now noticed. We'll just keep that in there. Nice touch.
Great.
To tame the frizz, I'm going around with shears to trim all that down. I'm trying to be careful just to cut off the frizz. I don't want to cut chunks out of Celine. Not trying to make chicken nuggets. Cutting off the frizz is probably the most satisfying part of needle felting for me. It just makes everything look so much nicer. That's good for now. I took a white piece of felt and cut that down. This is gonna be Celine's belly pouch. I started off stabbing it with my multi-needle, but soon I switched over to my single needle. Sometimes I find it easier to stab in smaller details with the single needle tool. It's just easier to like really stick these little pieces into there. The single needle tool is more precise. On my needle felted Squishmallows, I try to stab the bottom extra aggressively. Try to flatten it out a bit so that my Squishmallows can actually stand up. Cutting off some more frizz here and there. I can never seem to completely get rid of the frizz. I'm making the arms or wings or whatever with wool. Just stabbing a piece of wool down and cutting it into a shape that I want. A little stab on this side, a little stab on that side. Perfect. And then I secured them down with extra wool. I don't know if I'm supposed to do this or not. I don't really know the rules of needle felting. I just think the extra wool might help keep things in place, so I added on. I'm trying to blend that in, make it look more seamless. If you guys have any advice on needle felting or anything like that, feel free to enlighten me. Your guys' advice has really helped me so far, except for that sponge recommendation. That was a mistake. I know who you are. One of the wings might be slightly higher than the other. Not sure. Too late now. Celine's a pretty simple looking chicken. Like many chickens, she's got a red comb up top. It's hard to get some of the additions to stick on, so I'm using fabric hot glue to help me out. I don't know if it's cheating or if I just invented it. I'm sure someone will let me know in the comments. I mean, this is technically fabric, right? So I should be able to use the fabric glue to help things stick to the fabric, right? It is what it is. Some of the glue was being an eyesore, so I do my best to try to conceal that. She has the same eyes as every other Squishmallow. The only thing that sets her apart is her beak. I like needle felting Squishmallows. I think they're pretty simple for the most part. Pretty beginner friendly, so it's a good place to start. Alright. For my next Squishmallow, I didn't use a polyfill base. I just didn't want to this time around. I have enough of this color, so I'm not really worried about running out. Plus, this whole Squishmallow isn't gonna be a light petal pink color. This is just for the body. I've been using my multi-needle tool for a while. The needles haven't broken, but I feel like they've gotten dull. They weren't stabbing as well as they used to. I don't know. Not sure if they look like it or not, but I do feel like they've dulled down, so I've decided to replace my needles with the new ones. Of course I'm gonna save the old needles too, just in case there's a disaster and all my needles break. That would be tragic.
It's fine.
Alright, back to this petal pink belly. I wasn't done stabbing it, so I did a few more stabs. Once I was happy with the shape, I went in and added some hot pink around the head. At this point, it's looking a bit like that mushroom Squishmallow I made, but it's actually gonna be Della the duck, who looks exactly like Avery. except for, you know, all the pink going on. Avery is my favorite Squishmallow of all time. He's the best. Pay no attention to the fact that I cut him up and sewed Connor the cat's flesh on there. That's besides the point. So yeah, of course I had to include Della. I don't know what Della's relationship to Avery is. I don't want to make any assumptions, especially since I found out that the Bigfoot wedding I hosted for Benny and Zaylee was a bit scandalous. My bad. Anyways, like I was saying, for Della's head I just keep layering on the wool a little bit at a time and then stabbing that in. I cleaned up her rough edges, smoothed everything over. Not bad so far. She's got a very pale belly. It's a lot lighter than the rest of her. I stabbed down a flat piece of wool and then shaped that up to look like her belly. When I added that on her though, things just weren't looking right. I don't know if the belly is too big or maybe it's just not even or something. Something was bothering me. So I added some more pale pink around it to even things out. Like Avery, Della's got a white strip separating her head from her body, going around her non-existent neck. So I cut a strip out of felt for that. It's not perfect, but that'll do. She's got some hot pink wings to go with her hot pink head. Definitely not a duck you'd run into in the wild, and that's because it's a Squishmallow. It's not meant to be real. It's imaginary. Wow. Della doesn't have square eyes. I just find it easier to cut a square and then plop it on top. Plus I can always stab it into a circle, so it works out. It's just easier this way, at least for me. I kinda did the same thing with her beak, just kinda stabbed it into the shape I want. I didn't even try the pupil with felt or wool. That's just way too tiny. I can't even attempt that. No. I just went straight in with my old faithful fabric paint. I definitely needed a Della to go with my Avery. Cute. She's a little on the hefty side compared to her boyfriend. So that's that. Like I said,
Squishmallows come in all different shapes and sizes.
Della just happens to be the biggest of the bunch. And I like that. Moving on. Next up is Santino the platypus. I love platypuses. I find them to be very cute in a mutated duck beaver kind of way. You're gonna see me using some fabric hot glue again for some of the appendages. It's great. I love it. If I'm doing this wrong, don't tell me. Just let me be happy. Since I don't own the platypus Squishmallow, I'm not entirely sure about the proportions and measurements, especially for like the tail and his duck-like bill. I might have made him too long, really have no idea. More on that later. His face is pretty simple, just two beady black eyes, and that's pretty much it for Santino. Except the more I looked at him, the more disproportionate he looked. I feel like his bill should be shorter, right? I don't know. So then I made the executive decision to chop off like a third of it. I was scared that I might ruin everything, but actually I think it didn't make any difference at all. So that's great. I'm definitely not chopping off anymore though. I think I'm just gonna leave things as they are. I'm happy with it as it is. Why ruin a good thing? I thought Santino was gonna be pretty hard to make, but he actually wasn't so bad at all, especially compared to the next Squishmallow I attempt. Brenda. The last Squishmallow I'll be needle felting today is Brenda the Butterfly. Brenda is purple and she has antennas. What's not to love?
Everything.
I wanted to stab together a seal, but I ran out of white wool and I didn't want to just make it out of polyfill. That would look too frizzy, it just wouldn't look right. But I have tons of lilac wool, so I settled for Brenda. You know Brenda isn't my first choice. At least I hope you guys would know that. I tried stabbing together some dark purple wool for her wings. I stabbed a flat piece and then I tried to shape it into wings, but it just wasn't working out. I'll come back to that. For now, I'm just focusing on her belly. I'm using a cream color. I just tried to match the colors as best as I could. It's not gonna be exact, but you know, it's in the general ballpark. Back to the wings. I thought it would be easier if I made them out of felt. I cut some rectangles out and trimmed them down until they started resembling something like butterfly wings. Even with the felt, it was really hard cutting out the wings. They're just so tiny, and I wanted them to look symmetrical, which was a nightmare to cut. Brenda's wings have like a shiny, holographic kind of material on the inside, which I don't have, so I'm making do with pink felt. Looks pretty much the same to me. Close enough. I made her antennas out of felt as well, so they're kind of flat. They're not 3D, but that's okay. It's just that I wouldn't be able to stab together such tiny little antennas on such a tiny little butterfly body. And then even if I did, I know I wouldn't be able to stab those into her, because I've tried that before with tiny little tails and such, and it just doesn't work. The wool just disintegrates when I try to make something so tiny. So this was the next best thing. Despite all the hurdles Brenda provided me with, and despite the fact that she was never my first choice, I think this butterfly one ended up being my favorite of the bunch today. So here's my whole Squishmallow horde of squishiness. I'm running out of favorite Squishmallows to needle felt, hence why I have to settle for ones like Brenda. Let me know if you guys have any favorites.
Subscribe if you'd like to see more Squishmallows being stamped into existence.